So this morning, I am really glad to have this time with Chaplain Paula Thistle. She is one of the chaplains in our synod, and we wanted to have some conversation about having supportive people in our lives. So Paula, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Well, thank you, Stuart. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be with you today. Thank you.
So I know in our synod we have this system of chaplains. So why don't you say that a little bit, at least so folks know what's taking place in the Delaware-Maryland synod.
Thank you. In our synod, yes, we sadly had an incident that brought to the top the need for supportive presence one to another among our rostered leaders. Our synod leadership evaluated and determined that we need to take care of one another. As rostered leaders, we lead the body of Christ, and we have to present to the children of God, to the body of Christ, a healthy leader. We have to be there for them. And, I also do chaplaincy in the medical area, and I have a quote here that physicians describe a healthy body as one in which physical systems are in balance, working together with ease so that a person is able to meet the challenges of growth and change. That's how our leaders are. We have to be healthy leaders so that we can keep the body of Christ healthy, so that we can keep the body of Christ working together and to move forward. We are the body of Christ, and it's our call to be healthy leaders for them.
Excellent. It was a great description. So what we want to talk now a little bit is about what we might need in a supportive presence. And in our synod, we have the chaplains as a ministry, but even for church leaders who aren't in our synod, it might be your spiritual director, it might be your bishop, it might be a very close, trusted colleague, it might be a therapist or a counselor that you have. But what is it really that all church leaders would want to have? Can you describe a little bit about what a chaplain or whoever it is that fills that role would provide you?
What the chaplain, or as you say, the person who fulfills that role will provide for you is the faith and the knowledge that they are working with you, walking with you and working for you. We provide a ministry of listening, a ministry of supportive presence. As rostered leaders in the church around the world, not just here in our synod, day after day, leaders deal with grief and loss for their parishioners. They deal with people coming to them with tales of loss of job or infidelity or other matters that one right after another tend to pile up. And the challenge then becomes, when you carry all this for others, where do you go and how do you take care of yourself? There's the emotional labor that you invest in this. You have to go to the person. You have to be with that person, fully with them. But at the same time, you have to manage your feelings to take care of yourself. You have an energy. You have to focus on that energy to maintain your control, to guide you into what you're supposed to be doing with that energy. I also have a word, emotional intelligence, and I love the definition of that. The emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your own emotions and the emotions of others. It consists of awareness, the ability to harness your emotions, and the ability to manage them. This is very difficult for some people, but it's essential in the leadership of the church. You must be able to be aware of and be able to deal with the emotional situations of others, those around you, and to be able to help them with their emotions, again, controlling and maintaining and being in control of your own.
It's a great description and a reminder of all those different ways that ministry and serving drains us. And then, of course, sometimes, even if we learn those skills, if we're in a very fatigued situation, then our skills diminish.
Right. Well, I read an article recently about mattering. I think I may have mentioned that to you. This is an article written by a couple of sociologists, Morris Rosenberg and Claire McCullough. We take so much on for others that we forget sometimes that we matter. And according to them, I'm going to read to you here, mattering consists of three elements. attention to the feeling that one commands the interest or notice of others, the importance, the belief that others care about what we think, and the dependence, the realization that others depend or rely on us. I think sometimes roster leaders are so focused on other people's issues, they begin to believe less and less that they matter. And that's a sadness. And that's what leads perhaps to some of the other challenges we face.
And certainly having a chaplain, a spiritual director, whoever it is that fills that particular role in your life is one of those places where we're reminded of the fact that we do matter and the importance of our calling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is important for each of us to reach out to find that person. I think you mentioned earlier, whether that be a spiritual director, whether it be a colleague, whether it be the bishop. The bishop is called the pastor of the pastors. But I want to put something else on there. Sometimes one of the comments that was made about having the chaplains in our own synod, sometimes the challenges faced by the roster leaders are issues they don't want to discuss for whatever reason with their bishop, with their boss, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And there has to be a safe person, a safe place that they feel they can go to, someone they can talk with, someone who they can trust, and someone who will encourage them, someone who will give them some direction, and someone who will point them to additional help if that's what's needed.
I remember a colleague of mine commenting that he had a therapist. And I probably had like a look on my face like, oh, is something wrong? And the comment he made was something like, there's never a month that goes by that there isn't something that's challenging that I need to talk with somebody about. And, and thinking about his comment, I was like, well, yeah, every month there's those kinds of things you described before of ministering to someone that is draining. So, having that person, whatever role it is that they have, that having them. So I know, Paula, one of the things that you and the other chaplains had wanted to talk with leaders about was resiliency. And unfortunately, that workshop, I think, folks weren't able to schedule that. But share with us a little bit about that idea of resiliency.
Okay. I think maybe a little bit of that might have been mentioned in a previous conversation with Dr. David Baker. But, we talk about resilience. What is resilience? Well, it's your ability to recover from setbacks. It's the ability to adapt to change. And it's the ability to keep going in spite of what has gone on. Sometimes we become overwhelmed, but we have to learn to think, to be able to see things not as insurmountable problems, but things that we can deal with. We can't change stressful activities. We can't change things happen. People move away, people steal, people die. It's stressful, but you can change how you interpret and respond to those. You might have to look to yourself. I know I do this. I try to be reflective in how I'm dealing with the issues I face with other people. And that helps me. Actually, it helps me to help them better, even as I'm aware of my own challenges and limitations. When we deal with other people, when we walk through life day by day, we have to accept the fact that change is a part of living. I talked to a person yesterday who was talking about the music of today's youth not being the music that he grew up listening to. Now, this gentleman was in his 80s, so you can different. But change is inevitable. Now, move that out of the music realm, move it into church. Change is different. Change is inevitable. And the church is the life of the church, the body of the church, the participation in the church are changing. Circumstances that can't be changed, you have to deal with. You have to learn and accept those. And then you have to move forward. You have to create meaningful goals in your own life, meaningful goals that keep you focused, keep you doing something regularly, even if it's something little. I'm going to walk around the block 3 days a week, whatever. And while I'm walking around the block, I'm going to recite Psalms. That enables you, that's a goal, that's something you do. But it keeps you going forward. And there's a question that I sometimes ask, what is the one thing I know that I can accomplish today that keeps me going in the direction I want to go? I know in our busy lives and our stressful lives, we get people pulling at us from all over, But we have to take that one moment to focus. What is that one goal, that one thing that I can do today that'll help me to keep moving in the direction I want to go? You know, we have to be decisive. You know, we have to act on situations. We have to act on adverse situations. Rather than detaching ourselves, we have to, or wishing they'd go away, we have to be decisive and be firm in an action going forward. I think also to be resilient, we have to look for ways to rediscover ourselves. You know, we often learn something about ourselves and find that we've grown when we deal with struggle or when we deal with loss. People grieve, but they survive. People who've experienced tragedies and hardship have reported better relationships. They've grown because of that. They've become strengthened. They've become closer to family or friends or whatever, even while feeling vulnerable going through that situation. And one thing I find in talking with people, and I try to encourage us, you have to nurture a positive view of yourself. I talk to people frequently who say, well, I'm only this, or I'm not that, or I'm just whatever. Whatever you are, have a positive view of yourself. Develop confidence in your ability and your trusting instinct to help you rebound. And mostly, I think, no matter what we deal with, no matter where we go, we have to remember in all things, maintain perspective. Keep things in perspective. Sometimes we face painful events. Think of the long term. You know, avoid blowing everything out of proportion. I found that people who focus on the short term are far more vulnerable and far more stressed out. People who can get beyond the immediate and focus more on the long term will survive. And they become more resilient. And that's very, very necessary, especially in the line of clergy or rostered leader work where we're trying to help others. We need to restore our own resilience.
Thanks, Paula. That's some great thoughts on resiliency. I think it's a term we're starting to hear more and more because it's needed. So do you have any other recommendations of resources for help in resiliency?
Well, you know, you can go to the library or Amazon, and there are no end of resources. However, I read something recently which I found personally rewarding, and actually, with your permission, I'm going to quote one little paragraph from it. It's a book by Fred Lair, one of our own pastors here in the Delaware-Maryland Synod. It's called Clergy Burnout, and buried in that book is a little balanced checklist for nurture, advocacy, and wholeness. And with this, I will leave you with this little nugget.
Okay.
For nurture, we would have look for continuing education, spiritual direction, as you and I have mentioned, clergy support, therapy if appropriate, and leisure time. Leisure time is so important, and clergy don't often make that time for themselves. And renewed confidence in one's own calling. Advocacy, you have to set annual goals. You have to control your calendar. You have to have a clear description of your ministry and maintain proper boundaries. That also is very important. And wholeness, there's the exercise and nutrition. That's not just for clergy and rostered leaders. That's for everybody. And relaxation and spiritual renewal. Get your rest and walk with the Lord. And that would be, if I were to try to talk to someone about resilience, as I meet with people around the synod, I ask them to look to their own inner resources. To look to themselves, to look to the faith that God has instilled in them, and then to reach out to those who can help.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paula. Thanks for the time today. Especially, I know, we'll acknowledge the fact that you've been a chaplain for the last 24 hours in some difficult situations. So I really appreciate the time this morning.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care. Have a great day.